So, for today, we're going to focus on identifying the main idea of an informational text. So, if you would, you're going to need your purple textbook, and we're going to be starting on page 100. So, the informational text, which basically just means it's kind of the newer term that we use for nonfiction or the true stories, is called The Great Escape, and it's from an entire story called Boy's Life by Thomas Fleming. We're going to focus on picking out the main idea. So, if you would like to read this story on your own, you're more than welcome to. Let me get through a little bit of the information at the beginning, and then I'll let you know, and you can read it on your own. And then there are questions posted on Schoology for you to answer afterwards. If you are someone who likes to follow along and hear a story read, then keep with the video, and I'm going to read and explain as we go. All right? So if we look at the build the background, which is always what you want to do when you start any story from our textbook, it states, the article you are about to read recounts one of the most famous real-life escape stories of the last century, the Great Escape of World War II, in which 76 prisoners of war from many different countries escaped from a Nazi prisoner of war, another term, or the full term, sorry, for POW, from a camp in Poland. Okay. So, this story is basically just about prisoners, prisoners of war to be exact, escaping from a Nazi camp. So, if you want to read on your own, now is your time to turn me off and go ahead and read and then answer the questions posted in Schoology under the assignment. There are 5 questions that once again go along with the main idea, which is what we're focusing on here. All right, on page 100. The 700 flyers in the prisoner of war camp called Stalag Luft III came from many countries: the United States, England, Canada, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Australia, South Africa. They had 2 things in common. All had been shot down fighting Germany during World War II in the early 1940s, and all were determined to escape. So there, much like when we looked at the plot graph and we dissected different stories and put those different pieces in the plot graph, this would serve as our introduction, where our characters, who we know are prisoners of war, POWs, and then we also got our setting, our location, which is a war camp. They had tried to escape from many other camps and had been caught. That was why these prisoners had ended up in Stalag Luft III, deep in eastern Germany. It was supposed to be escape-proof. 2 9-foot-high barbed wire fences surrounded the camp. Between the fences were big towers equipped with searchlights and machine guns. The prisoners called the towers goon boxes. Day and night, specially trained groups of Germans, whom the flyers called ferrets, prowled inside the camp looking for escape activity. There you see the word prowled is highlighted, which means it's defined for you at the bottom. Anyone the ferrets caught planning an escape was sent to the cooler, which was a block of solitary confinement cells where the prisoner would live on nothing but bread and water. All right, now we see a title here, The Escape Genius. The Germans seem to have thought of everything, but they did not count on facing Roger Bushell. This South African was an escape genius. He was called Big X by the rest of the prisoners. He transformed Stalag Luft III into the X organization, announcing to his fellow prisoners that they were going to pull off the greatest escape in history. Big X's plan for the prisoners was to start 3 tunnels called Tom, Dick, and Harry. The men cut trapdoors through the stone floors of 3 huts and inserted removable slabs made from stolen concrete. Tunnel rats dropped through the trapdoors and began digging. Big X wanted deep tunnels. If they were too shallow, the Germans would be able to hear the men working in them. So, despite the danger of the tunnels collapsing and burying them alive, the tunnel rats went down 30 feet before they started for the fences. All right, so that's their initial plan, was to dig tunnels that went underneath the prison, the Nazi camp, and then which obviously they would dig to lead them out of the camp. The Escape Factory. The tunnels were only the beginning. I want each escaping man to be equipped with a set of forged documents that will fool the German police, Big X said. I want them to be wearing civilian clothes or fake German uniforms. I want them to have compasses and maps that will help them reach the borders of neutral countries. The X organization spotted weaklings among the ferrets and bribed them with chocolate from their Red Cross aid packages. Soon they had ink and pens, a camera, a set of official documents. A forgery factory ran day and night. In other huts, prisoners created civilian clothes by cutting and reshaping prisoners' uniforms, the linings of winter coats and other pieces of cloth. An Australian flight lieutenant ran a factory that made 200 compasses out of melted phonograph records. The compass needles were slices of magnetized razor blades. An engineering factory built air pumps so the tunnel rats could breathe. The engineers also made small flatbed trolleys from wooden bedboards. They even stole light bulbs and wiring for the tunnels. The diggers lay on their stomachs in the 2 foot wide tunnels and filled boxed on the trolleys with sand. Other prisoners poured the sand into bags made from towels, bags that could be inserted under a man's pants. 50 Americans worked as sand carriers. They were called penguins because they had to spend most of their time outside, walking up and down, waiting for the right moment to pull a string on the bags and let the sand run out. All around the camp were dozens of stooges who signaled when a ferret approached. This gave the foragers, tailors, penguins, and the others time to hide their work or take cover. 30 feet underground, the tunnel rats kept digging. So, what do you think is the main idea of that section, the escape factory? What was that section about? In that section, you learn how Big X wanted them to all, the people, the prisoners who were going to escape, he wanted them all to have forged documents. He wanted them all to have civilian clothes or be in fake German uniforms. He wanted them each to have compasses. He wanted them to have light in their tunnels, hence the reason they stole light bulbs. Um, they tricked the ferrets, who were the German kind of gophers, they kind of bribed them so they could get things that they wanted, like ink and pens, a camera, and all of that type of stuff. So that's all the stuff you learned in this portion. So what is it that you think the main idea of just that section was? All right. Moving on. Pretending defeat. Then disaster struck. The Germans discovered the trapdoor for Tom, the longest tunnel. The diggers had gotten past the wire fence and were only 100 feet from the woods around the camp. Big X ordered a halt to all digging for more than a month. He wanted the Germans to think that they had given up. Then Big X ordered an all-out push in Harry. Remember the 3 tunnels? The 3 escape tunnels were named Tom, Dick, and Harry. So the Tom tunnel was discovered, but the other 2 were not. So repeating here, then Big X ordered an all-out push in Harry. Soon they were under the wire and they thought into the woods. It was time for the Great Escape. That's the title, right, of this magazine article. Big X was hoping to spring no fewer than 250 men. Not even a six-inch snowfall was going to stop them. At 9 p.m. on March 24th, 1944, the breakout began. Men wearing German uniforms, business suits, and tattered workers' outfits crowded into the hut containing Harry's trapdoor. At the other end, the tunnel rats finished the 30-foot shaft to the surface. They finally broke through and stared around in horror. They were 10 feet short of the trees. After a frantic conference, Big X decided they had to keep going. All their forged documents were dated. If they dug another 10 feet and waited a month for the next moonless night, the forgery factory would have to do its work all over again. They stretched a rope from the hole to the trees. The first man out lay in the trees and pulled the rope to signal when the guard in the nearest box was not looking. Over the next 7 hours, 76 men scuttled through the woods toward freedom. It was almost dawn when a German sentry patrolling outside the barbed wire discovered the hole. The guard raised his rifle to shoot the man crawling out. The rope controller leaped from the woods, crying, "Don't shoot!" The startled guard's shot went wild. By this time, Big X and his friends were far away from Stalag Luft III. The German dictator Adolf Hitler was furious. He ordered one of the biggest manhunts in history. More than 70,000 policemen and troops pursued the fugitives. Once again, there is a highlighted word, which means it's defined for you at the bottom. Pursued means followed or chased. Big X's plans to humiliate the Germans and make them worry about escapees and not the war front was successful. But only 3 men, Peter Bergsland, Jens Mueller, and Bram Vanderstock, made it to freedom. 50 of the captured men, including Big X, were shot by the German secret police, the Gestapo, at Hitler's order. This was an outrageous violation of the rules of war. The bodies were cremated to hide the murders. The rest of the escapers were returned to Stalag Luft III and other camps for long stays in the cooler. A year later, Allied tanks freed the survivors as Germany surrendered. After the war, the British sent a team of investigators to Germany. They tracked down those who had carried out Hitler's order. 21 were hanged for murder, 17 received prison terms. What had the Great Escape accomplished? After all, only 3 men ended up truly escaping, and the other ones were all killed. So, what was gained from this Great Escape? One writer summed it up this way. It proved that, quote, there is nothing that can stop a group of men, regardless of race, creed, color, or nationality, from achieving a goal once they agree to what the goal is. And I think this is a really important idea for us all right now in this year of 2020 to remember that it doesn't matter the color of our skin, our nationality, our belief system, even if we all can come to the same idea and have a common goal, a common end goal, and then we agree to work together, no matter those differences, to achieve that goal, amazing things can be accomplished. If you have your book, I think it's interesting. There are 3 pictures. I'll kind of hold my book up just so you can see, but here at the end, there are 3 pictures of the 3 men who did survive and actually did escape the Nazi camp. And then even previously, there are different drawings, obviously done after the fact, of the men working to make that escape a possibility for themselves. So I think having the book in front of you is always helpful. I think it helps to not only hear something being read, but to see it in print as well and to follow along. I just think it has a better chance of sinking in and for you to understand it. So if you go to your Schoology, you will see an assignment, and it's just called The Great Escape. And there are 5 questions, all multiple choice, that you need to answer. If you have questions, please email me. You will not be able to redo this assignment because this is an idea. This assignment, I guess, is based on standards that you already should have covered. So it's just going to require you to look back in the text and think truly about main idea. And when you're thinking about main idea, the couple things that you need to think about while you're reading and or listening to the story is, what is the writer trying to say, right? What message is the writer trying to get across to you, and why? Why right now is it important for you to read about a prison escape, right? I certainly hope none of you end up in prison, and certainly not, you hopefully won't be trying to plan an escape. But what can we take away from this? Right? This happened in the 1940s. We're now in 2020. What can all of us take from this story and apply to our lives? The hint, if you've listened to my 15-minute video here, the hint for that main idea for the whole thing is in that last paragraph of the story. Okay, so go there and reread that if necessary. All right, if you have any questions, email me. Have a great day.